Hello and welcome back to the Pain Free for Life podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rob Vanbergen, and today I'm going to be talking with Jane Hogan. Jane, who goes by the title The Wellness Engineer, blends proven leading-edge science and ancient wisdom traditions to help people release chronic pain using the mind, body, and breath so they can become empowered creators of their own health. Her personal experience of reversing crippling rheumatoid arthritis using natural solutions inspired her to leave a 30-year engineering career and become a functional medicine certified health coach, certified yoga teacher, and wellness educator. Jane's design blueprint has helped thousands of people release chronic pain naturally. She is the host of the Wellness by Design podcast, and her empowering message is being featured on numerous podcasts and summits. She's been published in Thrive Global and Elephant Journal magazines and is a contributing author on 3 best-selling books. Jane also hosted the Becoming Pain-Free, Healing the Root Causes of Chronic Pain online summit. In this episode, Jane and I discuss the Pain-Free by Design blueprint. We talk about the essential connections between Western and Eastern medicine, the emotional root of chronic pain, and we even go through a guided experience based on Jane's design blueprint to help you relieve some of your symptoms right there and then. So without further ado, let's dive right in.
Welcome back to Pain Free for Life, where we share how to successfully overcome all kinds of chronic and extreme conditions to live happy, productive, pain-free lives forever. And now, here's your host, co-founder, and board-certified holistic healthcare practitioner, Dr. Rob Vanbergen.
Jane, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Rob. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I'm really excited, and I think we're going to dive into some juicy questions here. But let's start with something that's kind of interpreted differently by different people, I've noticed. But in your experience, what causes pain to become chronic?
I think chronic pain obviously is different from acute pain because it's pain that lingers. I think there's a lot of different things that can be at play. It depends on maybe what's behind the chronic pain. So part of it could be, from what I've been learning, a lot of emotional stuff can be related to chronic pain. It's just kind of appearing physically in the body. So with that, then, we've got to address those root causes of why is it there. But then there's also pain, and this can also have the same root cause, but it can become chronic because the brain is very good at learning. And so it learns how to send the pain signal. And then when pain is combined with fear, which often it is, and I understand because I had chronic pain myself, and you get into this whole fear cycle of, well, what if this doesn't go away? What's going to happen to my life? What if I can't work? All of this fear starts to pile up. And then when we have fear combined with the pain, then our brain really gets those networks going, and it really gets grooved in. So I think these couple of things are really key when it comes to dealing with chronic pain.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because it is something there's almost a stigma behind associating emotional issues and pain because people think that you're telling them that it's all in their head, which is not really the case. But I find personally, I don't think it's possible to go through chronic pain and not have an emotional experience in that. I mean, it by itself, the losses that you experience in what you can do. I had one lady once that told me that the greatest joy in her life was walking her dog. And that she was no longer able to do that because, she had this chronic ankle pain. So it is this thing. And then what you said there as well about the fear cycle and how that compounds itself is so true, because we see that with people that are in this experience where even as they start to feel better, they start to worry, right?
Yeah.
Major fear. Yeah. Is it going to come back? And so that can even hinder yourself. The mind, the brain is so powerful that you can manifest negative things from thinking about them, right? So It's all incredibly, incredibly risky. So, okay. So that's perfect. So then we're on the same page there.
You said something there that about even when you start to get better, that there's fear. Or even, we know that healing is not linear, right? So you might get a little bit better and you go, oh my goodness, didn't have any pain for like an hour. And then, then it goes down. Then you wonder, am I going to get more pain again? That was just luck. It's not going to. So our thoughts about the pain really affect the pain.
They really are. They truly are like an immensely big problem. And so much so that when we designed one of our programs, we were like, we have to be careful about leading with mindset, but we have to realize that mindset is important. If a client tells me that they've tried everything and they really don't think this is going to work, I know that they are setting up blockages automatically from the get-go, that if we don't address them right now, it's not going to work. And I've flat out said to people before, I'm like, look, if you're not in this, if you really don't think this is going to help, let's not waste your time, right? Like, let's not do this, because that is how powerful the mind is. And we see that with like the placebo effect, right? We know that we can be like, and even just that positive reinforcement is a form of placebo in that way. It can actually override your brain's negativity. So the emotional is hands down connected. And whether it's the root of the chronic pain or not, it's always going to be there. And I've found that if you don't address it, you won't get very far in resolving the actual pain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as part of your process, it's kind of science-based, and it also includes some ancient spiritual practices as well, right? So what do you think the combination of those things can kind of teach us about health and healing?
What's really interesting is that it used to be science was here and spirituality was, far away. And then it's kind of coming together. But we live in a paradigm where people really need the science to shift beliefs. And, a lot of this, we're talking about the mind here, what the mind can, how's the saying go? What the mind believes and conceives that it can achieve, something like that. So the thing is, people have to believe that it will work for them. So shifting beliefs is huge. But with the science now backing up some of the spirituality stuff, the thing we used to think was a little bit woo-woo, it's helping people shift beliefs, right? And so that really helps. And, things about like neuroscience now telling us, this is how these things are going on in the brain. And we can actually put different programs in there and change the output. I love thinking about the brain as just kind of, especially the subconscious mind, as being sort of like a computer. We change the inputs and it's running the body so we can then change the output. So these ancient spiritual practices that have been around for thousands of years, some of the yogic traditions and others, are now matching up with science. In fact, I only learned recently that some of the early quantum physicists actually went to India. They were like, hey, wait a minute, there's stuff they're saying that we're actually seeing in our labs. And so they went there to learn from the spiritual leaders there. And so there was that connection. They could see that connection happening then.
Yeah, connecting the two is something that I always feel, as you said, we in the Western world, we just have this need to see the proof, right? And so you kind of, as you said, there's that blending now. But things we teach in some of the things we do, meridians, right? So your acupuncture points, chakras, and all the emotions that can be connected to chakras. And these things, we've had them be trigger words for some people in classes in the past, because they're like, I'm a devout Christian. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there because it is not part of my faith. But there is real physical manifestations that science is starting to catch on to now between these things. Chakras seem to actually be associated with the nerve clusters of the spine that control certain organs, right? And meridians are in the fascial tissue, which everyone's talking about fascia now. So these things kind of are blending. And it's crazy to think of the difference between the Western world of medicine and what's normal there and what's normal in the Eastern world. And even some of the analytic equipment they use in hospitals there is measuring energy in meridians. And it's talking about balancing the emotions, balancing the physical as well. It's stuff that we've really become detached from, that it just feels so critical to actually I don't know, succeed in the healing journey. I'm glad that we're starting to bring that back into play.
Oh, me too. It's interesting because we were using the word spirituality, but as you said, it's more like a way of life. Like Ayurveda is a way of life. Traditional Chinese medicine and the way they incorporate it, that's a way of life, really. We're just, you and I were brought up in the Western world, and we have our paradigms and what we've learned, all those programs, right, that we got. That we're having to shift. And same with most of the people that we're working with, we're having to help them shift those and see a different perspective. But when they can see the science proving it, it helps them. It helps shift the beliefs. And then that's all we got to do is like get the belief shift. And then they can understand that they can use their thoughts to help program their body, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I even see it kind of like as a paradigm versus what we, as you said, the way we've been raised in the society is kind of this idea of like a sick care system, right? We care for people that are sick. And if you're not sick, if it's not an acute thing that we can quickly fix with medication, well, just get on with your life. But that ignores the emotional almost completely. And this is like, this spirituality, as you say, like built into the foundation of lives, meditating and caring for the body. Eastern medicine is more about wellness, and Western medicine is more about if we can't see it, it ain't real, right? And it's such an awkward position to be sandwiched in between those two things. I struggle with that day to day, trying to explain to people that they can coexist and that they should. That's really, I may not like necessarily want medications all the time, but if I'm dying of pneumonia, give me the antibiotics. I'll deal with the fallout of that later if it gets me through it, right?
Yeah.
I think we need to be able to embrace the fact that we've got good and bad on both sides of the fence. But really, we need to be looking at wellness as the solution, not, just
the power of the mind again is just so amazing too. You hear about those not just placebo drugs, but placebo surgeries.
Yes, there's those too.
Yes, I feel fine, and they've had no surgery except they've made a decision. So like it just tells us how powerful our minds are. Same with people under hypnosis. I remember hearing about this that someone is told under hypnosis that something hot is held against their skin. The skin will literally bubble, right? They'll have a physical reaction to a subconscious program. So, it's really quite amazing and we don't even really understand or grasp the full power of our mind.
No, not at all. And you're right there with the skin bubbling thing is interesting because that's showing the negative side of it too, right? That's the nocebo effect. So just as much as we can feel better from a treatment we thought we got, we can feel worse from something we thought happened to us. And this ties right back into what you were kind of saying at the beginning, right? The fear cycle, this impending doom that we're going to have, that it's going to come back, or the pain's going to get worse, or if I do this, I'm done. I won't be able to do anything for the week. We can actually create these prophecies for ourselves and self-fulfill them. It's an amazing thing. I think if we ever figure out exactly how the mind works, we will just have cracked the code,
Yeah, we're just getting started. And, also with we've got so much authority, or we've learned to give so much authority into a medical opinion, like of a medical expert, a doctor. And so if a doctor says, I was told there's no cure for rheumatoid arthritis, right?
Yeah.
I've cured it. So many other people have, but I don't know why I knew I could, but I just knew that I could. But other people just say, well, that's it. Nothing I can do. Or it's in my genes. That's another one I hear a lot. No, it's in my genes. There's nothing I can do about it. And we know now through epigenetics that less than 2% of our genes are responsible for permanent coding. So, yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. And I think probably the best success story I can ever say I had came from someone who was a Buddhist monk. And she was using a walker. She had such bad arthritis. She had a pain pump installed and everything. And she was determined that this was the solution for her. And within a week, she got off of the pain pump, off of the walker, and was like, I'm practically pain free. And so much of that, in my mind, came down to her mindset. She was like, I'm going to fix myself. This is the way for me. This is the path. And she dove in head first. And without, I wouldn't advise people just to stop their medications or anything like that. But that was what she did. And so the mind played a massive role there, because when people are thinking to themselves, oh, this is going to take a long time for me to get anywhere, they're kind of sabotaging themselves too. They're thinking there is no cure. I've been told there's no solution. I've been told I have to live with this forever. And it's not really true.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of sad. I was also told, well, you'll just learn to live with the pain. You'll get by. Like, I don't want to learn to live with the pain. No, thank you.
No. And so this is one of the reasons you created the Pain-Free by Design blueprint, right? So can you explain to the audience what that is?
Well, I was an engineer for 30 years, so I love using engineering analogies. And so if we're trying to, create something, we need a blueprint. So first of all, that's why it's the blueprint. And then the design blueprint, because I love the whole idea that we know through quantum physics that we can be creators, right? So if we're creating, we're going to create a design. So what do we want to have in that design? So the word design is an acronym for basically a process that I've developed based on my own experience, people that I've worked with. I would say hundreds of books and interviews and so on with experts and reading studies. So I put it all together into a process that I love and like to use. So the D is desire, explore, surrender, integrate, generate, navigate. And it's just basically a housing for my process.
Right. So how does this get put into play when you're trying to help people that are suffering from chronic pain? I'm assuming that that's generally people that come to you for help are chronic pain sufferers.
Yeah. It's mostly people with chronic pain. So I don't do any one-on-one coaching. I have a group program. And so I have this design blueprint as the core, the core education, component of my program. So within each of those steps, I have like 5 kind of actions that people can take to say, okay, I've kind of completed. I mean, not that it has to be done in exactly that order, but a lot of people just like, tell me what to do. They just kind of want some step by step. So just got some really easy steps. And then some of them are a bit more work, because a lot of what I teach is really about habit changing. It's awareness. So we talk a lot about thoughts and the awareness. What are we thinking? What kind of thoughts? Because everything that we think consciously goes to our subconscious mind, and then it deals with that and then decides how it's going to filter that through our physical body, right? So we do a lot of thought awareness. And then I have monthly themes where all the practices around that are always around deepening our awareness on different topics. We talk about things like forgiveness. I have a theme every month. There's forgiveness and abundance, because it's when we create abundance in one area of our life, freedom, I'll call it, in one area of our life, we create it in all areas of our life. Our physical body isn't really any different than our life, our relationships and so on. So what I do see when people go through this is not only do they begin to lower pain, or actually pain isn't a focus of their life anymore, right? They're focusing on other things. Their relationships improve. They say, I'm lucky, I find parking spots, and, or money comes in. So all of this kind of happens just because they're sending out a different vibe in the world, really, right? We talk about the universal laws, or like, you get back what you put out, right? So if you're tuned into the channel of I'm feeling good and I attract wonderful things, I love myself, I talk a lot about that too, because that's so important. You can't heal a body that we hate. So all of these things kind of go together, then just create this, really, you're creating a different version of yourself as our cells turn over.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that you see it sometimes with people as well, as like this lack of positivity in their lives. And positivity can be spread as much as it can be kind of, as much as negativity can. I think I've walked into a room before and I've kind of picked up on the energy someone's
Yeah.
putting off as negative, and it's brought me down. And so you can choose to almost change your frequency, right? And
Yeah.
change what you're putting out. And not only does that help other people around you, but as you said, it fosters all of that positivity for you. I try really, really hard nowadays to. I've always been a pessimistic person. I used to joke with my mom that British people are just
It is
pessimistic.
a British thing.
Yeah,
My parents
yeah,
were British.
yeah, and that's it. We all, it's like, oh, that was that, that was crap. We had this today, this to happen today. So I would find that one little thing that bothered me that day, and that would be all I'd talk about. And I realized only a couple of years ago, really, how destructive that was to bring back into my home all of this negativity around one silly thing that happened. It could have been that a bird pooped on my windshield or something, and that would be what I'd complain about because then it smeared and it wouldn't come off. And I realized this because my son started to talk about things negatively too. And
Uh,
I was like, look what I've done. I've created all these great things happen. And then one thing went wrong in his day. And suddenly life is ruined. What's the point? This is the worst thing. And that was amplified, I think, even more by autism. But so that definitely kind of came across as a stronger opinion. But it made me realize that I was doing this. And I've tried now to realize that those little negative things are just little negative things and that they don't matter in the grand scheme of things, right?
mhm.
That's been a very powerful transformation for me. And I think it can apply in pretty much all cases to people suffering from chronic pain, chronic disease. Like, look for, as you said, gratitude, look for the good things, right, that are
Mhm.
going on.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note, though, that we do have negative things happen. And, we do have a negative or a response to it, understandably, if it's negative. And that we don't want to ignore those either. We want to feel it and then move through it. We don't want to stuff it down because stuffing it down has resulted in probably some of the chronic pain that we may have. But we want to acknowledge it and not stay stuck there. That's the thing. We don't want to dwell in it. So
Yeah.
experience it. And so some of the tools that I teach are about feeling it in your body. Where do you feel it in the body, and doing some of that somatic kind of work to release it so that, we're letting it go again.
Right.
Yeah. So that's, those, we have tools like that in there too. Some tools to help release. And then some people, if they've got really deep rooted issues in the subconscious mind, then maybe they need to do some extra work to release some of that. Not that you need to go back and analyze it because that's not helpful, but to just recognize there's something still there. And so let's use some tools that can help release it.
Perfect. Yeah. So actually, let's see. Are you willing to kind of lead me in a guided experience based on this design blueprint?
Yeah, I'd love to. And I think so. I talk about sometimes these things. We can talk about chronic pain, and I can lead you through that. But I also want to invite some people who maybe they're not experiencing chronic pain right now, but we've all experienced little irritations like we were just talking about. So, and these things come along, all these irritations, things that annoy us, things that make us mad, all of it, I believe, is here to show us where we need to create more freedom. Because if something is annoying us, then we've got something little trigger inside that's, getting triggered, right? That little switch is getting flipped. So this exercise, I'd like for you to think about before we start, either a place in your body where you're feeling pain now, or an incident that kind of triggered you, like got you going. So get that in your mind, and then just relax wherever you are and close your eyes. And let's just take some breaths in and out. Into the belly, and in and out through the nose. And let's just acknowledge that we're safe where we are right now. And we're supported. You've got the support of the chair you're sitting on and the floor. And now I'd like for you to put your attention on either the place where you're feeling physical pain, or if you don't have a place in your body where the physical pain is, then the incident or something that triggered you, I'd like for you to think about that and then notice where in your body you feel it. So it may be showing up as could be dryness in your throat, tightness in your neck, maybe constriction somewhere, your chest, or maybe a knot in your stomach. Just notice where you're feeling it. And now let's see if we can feel some compassion for this place where you're experiencing pain, or this place where you've noticed you're holding on to that irritation. Let's see if we can imagine that this space is like a small child or a pet that needs some loving attention. So that feeling of compassion that we would have for a child who was hurt or a pet that was hurt, let's see if we can have that same compassion for this area. Now imagine you were giving it a hug, like you would do a child. Come here, it's okay. You're going to be fine. Just cherish it for a moment. You can even imagine your breath. Imagine as you inhale that you're bringing your breath to the area, and it's a very loving, nurturing breath. Filling the area with love, and then exhale again. Inhale again to the area, and again the feeling of, I've got you now. Everything's going to be fine. You're okay. And exhale. One last little inhale and hug. Imagine you're hugging this area from the inside, giving it a loving, cherishing hug. And let the area know you're always there. If it needs your help, you're always there. And then let it go for now. Bring your attention back on your breath, inhaling through the nose and exhaling. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes. Okay, how did that feel, Rob?
Very relaxing and much needed. Definitely. I always feel, you described it, that knot in your stomach. I feel like that is it's a level of stress thing. And the more stuff you do, the more it builds up. So when you mentioned that, I was like, that's what I'm feeling right now. And I focused on that point. And yeah, I feel almost lighter, It's an interesting experience, but also I totally could have just kept my eyes closed and kept breathing through that. It was very, very relaxing. Would have made for a bit of a boring end to the podcast, though.
We both fall asleep. Yeah.
Yeah. Both fall asleep and then 10 minutes of silence. Yeah. Oh, that was perfect. Well,
I forgot to mention beforehand to rate it out of 10. So you could, before you do this experience, kind of rate the pain out of 10 or rate the irritation or whatever it is you're feeling out of 10 before, do the experience and then rate it again. And I think almost every time I do this, people say it always goes down.
Right.
And even if you don't sense that it's gone down, it has done something, because every time we relax a little bit, as you know, like it calms the nervous system so it can go into the rest, digest, repair state. And that's always helpful. So no matter what, you're doing good.
Yeah. No, you're right. Like even that deep breathing just kind of puts you into that kind of parasympathetic, calm state. So yeah, by itself, even if you're getting nothing more out of it than that, that is going to be a big deal for a lot of people. So yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing that. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
I'm sure, people remember you can rewind and re-listen to that whenever you need it now. That is a resource for you. So, okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jane. I really appreciate it. To our audience, make sure you connect with Jane. I'm going to include all of her information on our show notes at painfreeforlife.com/podcast. Until next time, I'm Dr. Rob Vanbergen, and you're listening to Pain Free for Life.
Thanks for listening to Pain Free for Life. Be sure to follow us, share the show with family and friends, and leave us a review on iTunes. Every time you share the show, you are helping someone take their life back from pain. Visit painfreeforlife.com for more resources, including our free guides to microcurrent, the Hache protocol and inflammation, as well as our blog and online community full of people just like you, successfully overcoming all kinds of chronic and extreme conditions to live happy, productive, pain-free lives forever. And stay tuned for the next episode of Pain Free for Life.